Hi, welcome to this video webinar. My name is Mitch Dunford with the National Alliance, and I'm super excited about our conversation today. It's an honor and privilege to have a longtime friend of mine, Walt Gdowski, the president and CEO of Rough Notes. And behind him, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, is his wingman. Sam Berman is his COO, and he's on standby to help for any technical issues that we may have with Walt from his office. So welcome to you both. We're excited to have you, Walt. It's great to
Thank
see
you.
you.
We're excited to be here and to talk about Rough Notes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have on the event one of my colleagues, Dustyne Bryant. Dustyne is one of our academic directors here at the National Alliance. She's a CIC and a CISR, and she's currently heading up our personal lines academic development. So Dustyne, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on this call today.
So I talked to Walt. This was before the pandemic hit. Walt and I were discussing the history of Rough Notes, and I've spent some time with Walt at his office in Carmel, and they've got a small little museum there about Rough Notes. And I've always been struck with how the DNA of Rough Notes touches almost every part of the modern insurance industry. And I think most people know Rough Notes just from the magazine. It's a monthly insurance trade journal, and they know it, they read it, but they don't know about the history and how Rough Notes has influenced the industry that we work in and that we love. So I wanted to get Walt on this call to share with the industry just that, the history of Rough Notes and how it has influenced our business. So Walt, with that, why don't I turn some time over to you to walk us through this presentation, and then Dustyne and I will offer some questions as you proceed. So it's all you.
Well, I totally agree. The agents that I meet out in the field, they all know Rough Notes magazine. And of course, in 1989, we redid Rough Notes magazine. And all the agents that I talk to know us, appreciate what we do. But in 1988, I became president and CEO. And the first thing that I did when I became president and CEO, unbeknownst to my shareholders, this was Rough Notes magazine when I became president and CEO. So the first thing I did was to spend $2 million and go out and redo Rough Notes magazine and bring our circulation up to everybody else's magazine. And we introduced the new Rough Notes magazine with an agent on the cover. I must say that my board meetings from then on were very interesting, but we don't want to go into all that right now. The founder of the Rough Notes company, Henry C. Martin, was a doctor. He gave life insurance examinations here in Indianapolis, and then he got into the P&C world. And in fact, he wrote the first traveler's insurance policy for homeowners here in Indiana. In 1878, he first came out with Insurance Rough Notes, and why the name Insurance Rough Notes. He wrote a trolley to his agency, and he wrote himself Rough Notes of what he wanted to talk to the agents about. By the first of the following year, he took the word insurance off, and it's been Rough Notes ever since.
So if I understand that history, he was a physician that was doing health insurance physicals, and then doing so, he realized what a great business the insurance industry was. So he started a number of agencies, and as he would travel to these various agencies, he would write rough notes on what he wanted to talk to his managers about, and that's how Rough Notes started.
Correct.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and like I said, he wrote the first traveler's insurance company policy here in Indiana. The next slide shows the speech that Cimarron gave to the local fire agents. That's what the independent agents were called back then, local fire agents in St. Louis. And that is Cimarron's speech of how they should all band together. I gave that to the Big I. They didn't even have that speech, so we redid that for them and gave it to the Big I. But we were there during that speech and wrote it down and had that information. And that was published, of course, in Rough Notes magazine. And you have to realize that there were no cameras back then, so we had a man on staff who drew pictures to put in the magazine. And from there, when pictures were available, then we started to put pictures in the magazine, not just editorial. Of course, we went to the conventions. I don't know what convention this was, but this was an insurance convention that was published in Rough Notes magazine way back in the early 20s. As you can see, it was a totally man thing back then, and the way they were all dressed back in the 20s. In 1906, when the automobiles were coming out, and Henry Ford first came out with the Ford, our editor drove in this car, and Irving Williams was the editor, and he wrote this article that he thought that automobiles would play a role in insurance. So we got that one right, and that was in 1906, and that was here in Indianapolis. Him riding, and I understand that really is a Cadillac.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I've been told. But anyway, here's the different Rough Notes over the many years. The front page, the front covers of the magazine, all the way up to the 70s, and then 80s when I redesigned it. We showed you that. But what people really don't know is everything else we did. And that's why I put this PowerPoint together and call it like Steve Harvey called it, Now You Know the Rest of the Story. But in the 1800s, Martin came out with billing forms for the agencies to do their billing because they didn't have that kind of thing back then. And then in 1888, he came out with this system for the agencies, and that did all their billing and accounting in this form.
So would you describe that as the first agency management system?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely. 1888, 1887 is when he came out with this.
Wow.
And then of course we had our warehouse, and this was the original Rough Notes office and warehouse. This is no longer standing, but it was built right behind the State House building here in Indianapolis. But that was the original Rough Notes warehouse and office. As you see, the ladies have the long dresses on and so forth. Jesse James was out robbing trains, and we were still into publishing Rough Notes magazine and doing the billing system forms. We got into also wooden desk. Globe Warnicke Company over in Cincinnati, we went over there and talked to them, and they start building desks that only fit our forms. So the forms that Rough Notes was producing, Globe Warnicke were making these file cabinets and desks, and they were being shipped all over to independent agents across the country. I think I told you that in New York, a guy called me up, and he had an original file folder with Rough Notes' name on it, and wanted to know if I wanted it, but he wanted $5,000 for it. And I figured, I'm Polish, but I'm not going to pay $5,000 for an old desk like that.
So
anyway,
if I understand this right, so Rough Notes developed an agency management system that was a paper-based system.
Correct.
And forms were a unique size, so those forms required a unique type of file cabinet or furniture to house those. So Rough Notes created both.
Yes.
So Dustyne, how would you like to manage an agency with paper?
I've been there a little bit and had some paper stuff, and it's really interesting. The outlines and the layouts of these forms still very much match the forms that you can pull offline today. And we might be online now and have paperless systems, but what happens when your power goes out or when a storm hits? You got to have something in your files in order to pull it out and keep managing the agency. So it's really interesting to see how Rough Notes developed these forms, and then just like you were pointing out, then they made the file cabinets that the forms go in. And then I'm over here laughing about how somebody wanted to sell the file cabinet back to you. So that's awesome. I love it.
And then in the 1930s, they reworked the system and they called it the 1, 2, 3, 4 system. And it was basically the same thing, but expanded really mainly for the accounting end of it. And then this brochure I actually used in 79 and 80, 81, 82, and 83 when I was out in the field working for Rough Notes in New Jersey. And the thing about this, I would open this up and explain to the agent now how this is how you're going to do your billing system from now on. And the thing that really sold this system was the last part of the page when I told them that they would now pay on their account current and not on the company's account current. So that meant that he didn't have to, or she didn't have to do any kind of reckoning. And that sold the system every time, but also caused problem with the accountant because that put him out of business only at the end of the month to close. And also the accounting lady knew that, this is a lot easier. And all I'd have to do is, just do the normal billing and then the closing. But paying off the agent's account current, so the company would have to do the audit rather than them, was the selling point. So it worked out real well for us. When I was in New Jersey, there was a company called Mines Press, and the reason why I bring this screen up is that Mines Press duplicated our forms and was selling them to the agents, trying to beat us out with the money and the sales. And they really did. They hurt me, especially because I was in New Jersey, Connecticut, and in that area, and they were a lot cheaper. Well, they were a lot cheaper because they didn't have a system. All they were doing is selling the paper part of our system. And when an agent called and asked me to come out there to set up their system, I asked them where they bought the forms, and they bought them from Mines Press. Call Mines Press, let them come out there. Well, they didn't have a salesman to do that. So they were in a little bit of a problem. I used to go out there, and then from there on, they bought the forms from me.
Right, you can buy the forms, but if you
Yes.
don't have the system to use the forms, it's not going to work.
Or if it's not explained how to do it.
Right. I mean, that's the whole part of the train. So like you actually contributed to agency training.
Yeah.
You may just be trying to train them how to use the forms, but the standards of operating procedures come off of those forms, and you end up coming up with an agency process just out of using the form.
Yeah, and what I wasn't showing you, I'm just showing you those forms, but we also had the accounting forms, the ledgers and everything else, and where everything went. So I explained, most of the agents had their own books, but here's how it's going to go into our books, and everything works out for you. So yeah, and then then when computers started to come out, well, you didn't buy your own computer, but you had batch systems. So Rough Notes came out with its automated agency batch system, and they put that in Chicago because they didn't think that was going to catch on. And if anything went wrong with the accounting system for agencies, it was in Chicago. It was really not Rough Notes. They had Rough Notes' name, and they kept it up there for that reason. Well, the batch system worked out fine, so they never had to be in any kind of problems with that. But we even moved into the batch systems at that time. Thank you. This gentleman came to us in 1972, Robbie Thompson, and he said, I just got out of college and I'm a programmer, and my father has your system. And what I did is I reprogrammed your system on a computer, and Rough Notes, I'll keep it updated. And what I want you to do is to go market it. And the management back then, even though they were not Polish, they said, nope, computers aren't the thing. We don't want to get involved with that. We have our batch system. So Robbie Thompson went and called it Redshaw, turned around and sold it 3 years later for $7 million to Hartford Insurance Company, who turned around and gave it to their agents, said, from now on, you're using this system that's going to be called Hartford and not Redshaw. So
he was like the Steve Jobs of insurance.
You got it. You got it.
So was Redshaw really the first kind of modern digital agency management system?
Yeah, that and AMS was coming out at the same time.
Okay.
So it was really AMS, them, and Applied was coming on, but they were just still developing.
And Redshaw was based on the 1, 2, 3, 4 system in your batch tool?
Well, when I was selling it, it was not 1, 2, 3, 4 anymore. It was just the Rough Notes manual system.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all based on that.
So it's safe to say that at some level, the DNA of the rough notes system has been carried through to the modern agency management systems.
Yes, yes. And I
Right.
think I even told you, even the phrase or the forms, the policy register and so forth, that was done in 1800s. That was established by rough notes. So Martin just called it the policy register and count current. And that stuck all the way until now.
And you've got your bank of forms and agency management systems. Some of those early forms that you were just showing, like they almost look identical to what we're using today. So you may not use the paper version of it. You've got the digital version of it.
Yeah.
You know, you're using AMS or Vertafore or Applied, whatever it is. You click on your forms bank inside that system and it pulls up like an
Yes.
1800s designed form.
And this is a little bit older, but this really kind of came out with it in about 2012. The three majors back then were Applied, Vertafore, AMS. There's about 3 or 4 more big user groups. But what I was pointing out is back in 2010, we were the 3rd largest user group, but we were manual. And then the other ones have come on and so forth. We're probably down now to about 500 agencies still using our system, our manual system. And what I find is most of them are, let's say I'm an agency and I sold my agency to you and I kept 25 or 30 of my customers, my best customers are mine. So I just continue to use the manual system for billing and accounting, and it's just for me rather than running an agency. But we still sell our forms, and like I said, we got about 500 agencies that are still using it, or let me say owners who have sold it that are using it.
So are you
Now,
inferring that there are at least 500 agencies out there that are still using these paper forms?
they still call up and they order our forms.
Wow.
Yep.
I wonder how that's worked with transitions recently. How is that? Have you gotten any feedback on that?
No, I have not. No. Yeah, and like I said, most of them are just, a one person, I'm keeping, 50 customers or 25 customers that, and maybe the missus is doing the typing yet or whatever, and we're just billing these 30 customers and just keeping it that way. But we still
That's
sell
awesome.
it. We still sell it. And I'm sure there's a couple agencies out there that are still on my manual system. So
Probably.
let me say this. Before Robbie Thompson, before the computers took off, 75% of all the agencies in America was on our manual system.
Wow.
So
Wow.
if we would have came out with our own good system, like Redshaw's, and just married those people over to that, we would have had we would have continued to have 75% of the market unless we screwed up somehow. But 75% of the agencies were on our manual system back then. Whoops. Like I said, we did we made a lot of money selling forms, all different kind of forms, renewals. These were company forms. We imprinted the company's name on these, and they sent it out as renewals or new business and so forth. Loss notices. We had all these different type of forms. When the earthquake took place out in San Francisco, our loss forms were used throughout with company names on there and so forth. And in it was about 70, or excuse me, right around 79, 80 is when Accord came to us, and this was our form. And Accord said, we're working with the companies and we're going to standardize all the forms throughout the industry. And Rough Note said, no, you're not. We make too much money on this. And they got into a big hassle. And then, of course, Accord came out with their form and knocked us out of business.
And it still looks like this today. I promise you it does. It's so, like, I just love hearing that this is the history of your company, but it's like, it's the present.
Yeah, and if you look at the form, the one on the left has a Rough Notes logo and it has our 6-digit number, and that's everything like that. All our products still have that kind of numbering. Back then, it was the agency company operations research and development. That's what Accord stood for, and they came to us, and then we said no, and they knocked us out of business. So and management wasn't Polish yet either. So I just want to point that out. Back in the late 20s, we brought a person over. His name was Mr. Lang, and he came from Farmers Insurance Company. And we brought him over because he was doing pictorial for them, and we brought him over and opened up Rough Notes Pictorial Division. And what we did is we put a picture to a risk for the agent to go sell insurance. So we show this happens to be a burglar getting into a home. This is why you have to have home insurance. We show a picture of a house on fire. So this is the thing that creates interest in insurance. So we came out with Insurance Pictorial. And as you see, we would put this brochure into Rough Notes magazine at that time and send it out to all the subscribers. And if you were an agency and you liked that brochure, you would call us up and we would imprint it. And as you see, we imprinted this one for Curtis O'Neill, and they're out of Orlando, Florida at the time, and they were handing those out to their customers. We went from there to Insurance Hazards Illustrated, and this was a better brochure in 4-color to send out to the agents. Mr. Lang saw that we were making so much money. He said, I would like to share into this, and I'd like to buy into Rough Notes. And Rough Notes said, no, we're a sole company. No, you can't. And he left, went down the street, and opened up Pictorial. Now, most people my age will know who Pictorial is. Probably you guys don't know who Pictorial was, but they came out with the same products that we had. And they also got into continuing education. And a couple of years ago, well, they've been bought by Dearborn, and then another company bought them, and then Vertifor really bought them and has them doing their CE and that kind of stuff. And they're on the south side of Indianapolis here.
So this was an agency management marketing tool.
Yes, absolutely.
Developed where the photographer would take a photograph of a disaster or some type of hazard or peril, and then agencies would send that to their insureds and say, oh, look what can happen. Call us for insurance coverage on this. Is that how it worked?
That's how it worked. And we also had our own staging area in the building, and they would build let's say steps. We have a picture here where we had steps coming down from a front door, and we had a lady laying down, and we see 2 guys up dropping snow over top of them. So this is why you need insurance, because if this person fell at your house, you need liability insurance. So we even staged those types of things if we couldn't get a picture. The next one is our original books that we gave that we sold to agents Casualty Guide, Property, Auto, and these books are that size because they fit into the men's breast pocket, and it was easy to carry and walk and to read. Those are our originals, and then we also did publishing for other companies. Beck's, as you see, our logo was into their appraisal guide. And I like to, when Doc was here receiving an award that we gave him, I like to showing this, but the original idea of CE was all the way back in, if I'm reading this right, 1906, when the Rough Notes came out with the Insurance Institute issue. And what we would do is, this was for agents and clerks examination. We put it into Rough Notes magazine. And if you were an agent, you took the examination, you send it in to us, and we would then publish your picture in Rough Notes magazine and send you the certificate. So it was like CE, but who knew who took the exam? But people were honest back then. They took the exam, sent it in a Rough Notes. We put your picture in, and you would get your Rough Notes certificate that you had passed this insurance examination.
So what did Dr. Holt say when you pointed this out to him?
I wanted a piece of the action. He said no.
So if I understand this right, in the Rough Notes magazine, you would print an exam.
Yep.
And a subscriber could complete that exam, mail it back to you, your team would grade it, and if they passed, they got a certificate and their picture appeared in the next issue. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's really cool.
But that's kind of, I mean, this is like, what are those magazines for kids? Highlights? And they've got all kinds of, like, you get your fun activities inside the magazine, and you can even mail it back to the magazine and have your little artwork published. This is like the, this is the insurance version of highlights for weirdos like me.
Kind of like LinkedIn in that your photograph appears in the Rough Notes and a little
Yeah.
bio about yourself, and that gets spread across all of the subscribers, the insurance community that sees you and what you've accomplished.
Well, look, you've got DNA in LinkedIn. I mean, you can even take the little tests on LinkedIn to show what you're proficient in as well. That's
Yeah.
it's all
And
in there.
And it's funny because we introduced this in 1903, and
Wow.
we were doing that in 1903 for the agents. And then, of course, you know, in the 80s, I guess it's when the continuing ed really became big, and all the states were having it and so forth. And I got into it with being president at the time, and with all the problems that the states were giving us because they want different hours and so forth, and you had to re-qualify every year and so forth. I decided to get out of it, and I sold our CE all to Dearborn. So it went to Chicago. So that's what that represents. This represents, there was 5 fire rating bureaus around the country before ISO. And when we worked with these agencies, and we came out with a product called PF&M, which analyzes those policies that these fire rating bureaus were producing. And of course, what happened was, well, there's the original PF&M that was developed in 1928. So this product is still a core product of Rough Notes, and it was developed in 1928. And like I said, it's still one of our main products. But ISO bought and merged all these fire agencies into ISO. And back in 1996, when ISO became 25 years, they didn't know their history. So they came to us, and this gentleman, Roy McCormick, wrote their history because he worked with the fire agents and also with the beginning of ISO all the way back then. So we wrote their history for him, and they put it out in their 25-year anniversary. And that's how close we were with ISO back at the time. Original PF&Ms that we had all the way up until 98, I think it was, until the CDs came out. We had 8 binders, 6,000 pages. So when CD and the computers came out, we were able to take this off the market, put it on a CD, and send it out that way, save a lot of money. And this product now has 4-color, so we're able to enhance it and cost less to get it out to the agencies.
I've seen these binders before.
Yeah, they're still out.
They're usually in the senior agent's office, kind of
Yes.
on the shelf, like a relic, but I've seen them and they're really interesting.
Along with this next photo, right? This
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is our calculation calculators. The one on the left is Jim Rowe from Arlington and Rowe, up the street from me. His father used this for 40 years, and I'm a friend of Jim, and in fact, he insures my airplanes. And he stopped in and he said, "This was used by my father for 40 years. I like another one." So I gave him the one on the right, of course. And but that's our calculator wheels, and we still sell them. Believe it or not, when I became president, we had the 1, 3, and 5 year calculator. Now nobody buys 5 years insurance policy anymore, so I canceled them. I got so many complaints that the people were so used to using this one wheel that we had to bring back the 1, 3, and 5. And really, all they're using is 1 or 2, but they're not using 5. But they're stuck on that wheel, so we had to bring them back. And we still sell that wheel also. Now the wheels are also automated, so You can buy them automated, but still companies still buy these this way.
So
In my infancy of being in an agency, I've seen these wheels. It was, we refer to them as the wheels or the short rate wheel because pro-rate is a little bit easier than short rate. But you bring out the wheel, and the very first time I got to see one of these wheels again was from another senior lady that was teaching me how to be me. And she pulls this thing out. What is that? And she starts, I'm sure this has to be online. I know just enough about them to know I don't know how to use them very well, but they're still out there. You're right. We've got, I think in every agency that I've worked with, they've been in somebody's drawer and they've come out a time or two, and usually working with surplus lines when you've got those earned policy fees or the short rate, if you will, on the policy fees. And you just contact that carrier back. I got to cancel this policy. Are you going to tell me how much you're going to take off the top?
Oh, Walt, you still produce these? You still have them in stock?
Oh yeah, we still have these in stock. Yeah, at least I would say we sell anywhere from 200 to 300 a year.
Wow.
And we got 6 different kinds. So yeah, we still sell them.
That amazes me that you still sell them in that quantity.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
The next one is we go back to Henry C. Martin, and Henry C. Martin got ill in 1916, and E.J. Wolgemuth over in Cincinnati was publishing the Ohio Underwriter, and he came over because they became friends, and he came over and bought the Rough Notes Company and left his son over there to run the National Underwriter. And Wolgemuth decided that he was going to divide the companies up and give them certain products, and Rough Notes would keep certain products. And he bought it with his own money and $10,000 from the underwriter. So when I bought this company, the underwriter still had a percentage of the Rough Notes Company, and I go back to being the sole owner, as Henry Martin was, all the way back till that time. But anyway, Wolgemuth said, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to call the National Underwriter, the leading publication. I can see part of it. And then Rough Notes was going to be the monthly magazine that's going to talk about the different branches of business. So that's how they were going to divide it up, and those type memos behind it explain more who's going to get what and who's going to do what compared to the National Underwriter and the Rough Notes Company. Now, if you're older like me, everybody back then up until 2000 knew about the National Underwriters. They called them the Red Books. Every state had a Red Book, and in that Red Book was all the agencies and their addresses listed in the Red Book. So this happens to be Massachusetts. It has all the agents at that time listed in there and the companies that are licensed in those states. So that's what the underwriter published with the Red Books. But the Red Books were really published first by the Rough Notes Company. And as you see, the first directory here in Indiana was in 1899 to 1900. So we were publishing those, but Wolgemuth decided, okay, we're going to give that branch to the National Underwriter, and Rough Notes is not going to do that anymore. So that's how some of the different products were divided up. We were making so much money off of PF&M. That's why the National Underwriter still to this day has FC&S. And FC&S is written more from the lawyerese. Rough Notes has always stayed with writing the PF&M for the agent. I hate to say this, but we kind of dumb it down, being Polish like me, for the agent to read it versus the attorneys. We're not going to court. Here's the version that you would understand. So that,
well, maybe the attorneys need to read the agent version because they're still litigating this stuff in court every day.
I totally agree with you.
And what's interesting is the size of all of these books were designed to fit in the pocket of like a suit jacket or a shirt pocket. We may think that sounds strange now, but we have these little mobile devices now.
Yes.
I mean, we have it in our pocket right now.
Yeah.
Well, in 93, I became owner also. So I'm back to being the sole owner of Rough Notes since Henry C. Martin. Back then in the 90s, that's when the computers were really coming out strong and new programming and so forth. And the first thing I did was, first of all, we moved from downtown with 3 unions doing our own publishing to up here to Carmel, where we have a 15,000 square foot building rather than 46. Got rid of the unions. We went from about 300 employees down to 50 and got everything online and our own servers and so forth. So we were able to make our products better and also cut the cost down to actually doing the printing and so forth and just publishing it and then publishing it on the internet. We were the first ones to put an insurance magazine on the internet for free. And I know it was back in 1995, 96. And we went to Las Vegas to the Independent Insurance Agent Convention. And I took an editor with me, and we took a camera, and we took pictures of the young agents getting their awards. And we took overnight shipments back, and we put the film in. I had it developed in 24 hours, put the film in. She wrote the information about the agents. We sent it back here to Indianapolis. They put it on our website because that was brand new at the time. And the young agents would tell their parents, go up on the internet and you can see me from Las Vegas. Well, the big eye wasn't happy with that because they didn't have theirs up yet. And here everybody's going up to Rough Notes to see this. So they still hold that against me, but that was fun. Companies who buy my content and put it into theirs, Vertifor, Sage, but it's now called Reference Connect, of course. All of Reference, not all of Reference Connect, but our insurance content is on Reference Connect. Xywave, the Big Eye virtual consultant, is really the Rough Notes online product. Some don't use our name, but the Big Eye wants to use powered by Rough Notes. So some use it, some don't. I don't care. Send me a royalty check. It's okay with me. But our content is so good and so well developed for Vertifor or for Xywave or Applied to try to go out and match it. It'll cost them too much money, and plus we keep it up to date and have it on the server for them, so it's easier to do it that way. And I don't charge them a lot of money, and they just send me a royalty check.
The Sage and the Reference Connect have been like a staple in my career for I mean, it's where you pull everything from. You've got your ISO information there. You've got your protection classes, your VIN number lookups. It's all right there.
Yeah, and our commercial and personal line surveys on there, and PF&M is on there, and coverage is applicable. And these are all the other companies who either buy my content and put it into their products, or they buy my product and give it or pay some portion of it to their agents. This needs to be updated, but so many companies, like our content, and it helps their agents get the information to the underwriter, what the underwriter needs. And that's what our product does, and that's why these companies like it. These are just photos out of old Rough Notes back in the 20s. We used to take pictures of the front windows of agencies, and this is back when horse and wagons and people were walking up and down the streets. There wasn't automobiles yet, and this is how you should design your windows to get people interested in insurance. I thought that was interesting because you're doing the same thing now with windows on your website.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not the same, but yet it is the same.
Windows and Facebook, social media.
Yep.
I don't think there's one company that I haven't gone to, insurance company that is, that doesn't have a program of their own teaching you how to be better and more visible online.
Yeah.
So let me make sure I understand this for our listeners, our viewers. So Rough Notes would take photographs of an agency window of their office,
Yep.
Publish it in the magazine and give recommendations and say, you need to design your window treatment like this to attract more business.
You got it.
Wow, that's amazing.
And of course, the picture on the right-hand side here has their whole, agency staff outside in front of the window.
Yes.
So, yeah, so that's what we did to help them better market themselves to their customers. And of course, as we go down here, it's newspapers. We help them with different types of promotion. There's an agency with, a car that's banged up and why you should have auto insurance and that type of thing. You should be at the fair selling and promoting yourself. Billboards.
Agents still do all this today too.
Yeah, and direct marketing, yellow pages, what you should have and how you should be listed in there. And then about 6 years ago, we got into digital advertising. We do out in Denver. We have a company that works with us with insurance, and if you need a video done, we'll either send somebody out or you can go to there and do a video of your agency. We do some commercials for some companies. Lexington, we still do 3 a year for them. We fly out to Lexington, Massachusetts, and do their videos for them. We do our own videos for our own blogs, and for the agency, they can buy them from us or rent them from us and put them up on their website. We have producer agency staff training videos for the sales managers. Advertising videos we can do, and then for the agency website, if your son or daughter is going to college or teen driving, your dwelling for homes and so forth, we have all that if you want to use our stuff or you want us to create anything for you. But basically, that is the rest of the story about Rough Notes, and we're not just a magazine.
I love that. It's like Paul Harvey. And now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah, that's exactly who I stole it from.
Well, Walt, the Rough Notes website is www.roughnotes.com, correct?
Correct.
And you or Sam can be reached on there. I looked that up today. Your email address is on there.
Yep.
So if someone wanted to follow up with you, they could.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Dustin, thank you very much for your participation. Amazing as always.
Thank you. I absolutely love hearing the story, learning a piece of history from something that's just super fun for me.
Yes.
I've enjoyed the entire presentation. It's,
Well,
And
I want the little tiny book. I need the tiny books.
and if you're ever up in this area, you're welcome to stop in, and we have most of our history on display. And in our library, we have all bound issues of Rough Notes magazine in there.
Wow.
So we got 143 years of bound Rough Notes in our library.
fascinating. I've seen it. It's a fascinating experience. Walt, thank you, sir. It's an honor for the National Alliance to be able to document this history. And I hope our viewers realize, like we discussed at the beginning, the impact that Rough Notes has had and is still having on our industry. So heartfelt thank you, Walt, for all that you and your organization has done for all of us for so many years.
Well, thank you, and thanks to Doc. Doc and I are good friends, and what he's done to for the industry with helping the individuals learn about insurance. There's nobody better, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on another episode of our podcast or our webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.